I've appreciated the ongoing acknowledgement that we're meeting on Aboriginal land, so we should keep that in mind, and we have much to learn about connectedness in general from the First Nations people of this country. So Ashley and the rest of the committee did manage to find a consumer. I'm actually Ashley's partner. We share children together. So that's one way, if you're looking, how on earth will you find consumers? You're all consumers at some point, right? There can't be many people in this room who actually have never received healthcare. So you're a consumer at a certain point. I imagine that there are people in this room with disabilities, with chronic illness. There ought to be about 18% of the people in the room, but it's unlikely that there is a representation of chronically ill people like that here. It's very difficult to access a workplace, and it's very difficult to access conferences, etc., with chronic illness and disability. We need to change that, and I'm extraordinarily proud to be here working with you on improving accessibility in many areas. Telehealth's a really important part of that. So, over the last sort of 12 months, 2 years, I've finally started getting real about the impact of my health conditions on my ability to do things in the way that people without chronic illness are able to. So I've been living with disabilities that are mostly invisible for 36 years, and I'm just becoming aware, out of a really long fog of denial, it is denial, and a belief that being ill is some sort of a failure, of the extra work that it takes to navigate the world and the systems that we have successfully when you've got these other things to manage. So I have a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Not many people have probably heard of it, but it's a condition that means the structural matrix that holds my organs and joints together is less robust than it should be. It's fragile. So I'm more flexible than I ought to be, and not always in a useful way. Party tricks. My joints, they sublux and dislocate regularly, and I have osteoarthritis already, and my organs don't function as well as they should do because everything's held together with connective tissues. I've also, lucky, got a separate chronic neurological condition that's called chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. And without the medical treatments I receive, my body's immune system and the immune cells attack nerve cells, and in particular the myelin sheath that coats them. So if you don't know, the myelin sheath on nerves it's similar to a sheath around an electrical wire, and it's what's there to make sure that all messages from the brain to the rest of your body can travel quickly and without interruption. So quite literally, there's massive connectivity problems within my body. So it affects my ability to move, to get, receive and send reliable messages about temperature, pressure, pain, and the function of my internal organs. That's a problem. So I'm also, this is a bit more complicated than usual, just the big, yes, there we go. I'm also a physiotherapist who's working in rehabilitation research. So I have a few roles which, a little ironically, are mostly about improving connections. So I'm a communicator and a person who links and then translates between people who need healthcare, consumers, clinicians and researchers at the University of Newcastle and in this space invader of a building, Hunter Medical Research Institute. So I work for the Priority Research Centre for Stroke and Brain Injury, the NHMRC Centre for Research Excellence in Stroke Rehab and Brain Repair, which has too long of a name, and newly in the Centre for Rehab Innovations. And it was excellent to hear about the machine learning that's going on. We're looking at developing precision rehabilitation methods that will help to guide clinicians and also give patients more information about making choices as to what sorts of rehabilitation they might access, and doing it in interesting ways. So, clinically though, I've been using clinical telehealth and admission. I met Ashley on a video call whilst developing up, I know, it's just embarrassing, so I've told you all. When we were developing up a couple of different models of care for me to see patients in the Hunter Valley, who it's a long way for them to drive to access health services. I was working with his colleague Jenny, actually, not Ashley, but he was in the background. So I've done, as a physiotherapist, neuro rehab via video call, and this is just a picture of a patient who was at home, who lived an hour and a half from the main place where he could have received his physio. At the same time, like, it's a really efficient way to deliver neuro rehab. I'm typing my notes, they're done at the end of the day. And he was getting visited by a nurse anyway, who was able to supervise some of his more complex exercises. We use telehealth within the transitional aged care program in the Hunter Valley to link relatives with patient care plan meetings, make sure there was multidisciplinary input for patients, and to run exercise classes. And this is me at home, which suited me very well, particularly when I have fatigue that impacts my ability to drive. So people in Singleton joining in with an exercise class, there's actually a dietitian and a nurse supporting that class. I've blanked out their faces, but they were having a really good time, like smiling. And then more recently with the research group, and Associate Professor Coralie English is standing up over there. A lot of our work's around reducing sedentary behaviours. Feel free to join her. And Margaret Galloway, she's going to talk this afternoon about some of the other telehealth exercise interventions we've done. But we developed a program called SLAM TIA, which was a support with exercise and a lifestyle change program for people who had had minor stroke and TIA, run in a gym. It was informed by qualitative research into people's readiness and perceptions of what they need to do after a TIA to prevent future stroke. And we had, the program has a period of 3 weeks of face-to-face assistance at the gym, and then follow-up and more via telehealth after that. The reason why we chose the gym, I mean, you can imagine we want to have things, and I'll pause this in a second. We want to make sure that our services transition people back to real life. So having, a health service run in the gym is good. People aren't acutely sick. Whoops, I want to go back. And I don't think I can pause that, but this is an aerial of the John Hunter Hospital where we otherwise could run the program. And you'll see in the building, the Royal Newcastle Centre is where the physio gym is there. And then to the left of that is the car park. It's a couple of years old, there's more car park, but you might have to park to get to that program run there anywhere along that entire long line. So you might have to walk up to about 1.5 kilometres just to get to the gym if we run it at the hospital. Plus parking, plus all that other stuff. So instead, this is the car park at the gym that we chose that was close by. There's heaps of space. This car on the far left is the same car on the left here, and that's the entrance to the gym. It's free parking, super easy. So normal waiting room at the Royal Newcastle Centre, waiting room at Planet Fitness. Don't like the decor, but that's a personal thing. Comfy chairs, and that's what actually the gym looks like at about 10:30. And I won't go into it in this presentation too much, but absolutely acceptable to patients. There's robust research looking at the health outcomes, using accelerometry to measure the physical activity outcomes of people, and they are able to access this, their health professionals at the gym whilst we sit in the hospital, or from wherever they are. So we've done video calls I'm on the walking track, Port Stephens, I'm about to go for my walk, I just wanted to touch base with you about this, and then off they go. People have video called in from on holidays when they were going to be with family because there was a birth of a grandchild happening. Didn't want to miss the program, don't have to. Okay. This is also me. I actually just need to track back for a second. More on the program. It won a Health Service Translational Research Award, which is very exciting. It won because of the innovative approaches to providing the care, and also the fact that it was flexible and allowing, in its initial iteration, people who work to access the program at different times. So there were some after-hours appointments. I started providing some telehealth consultations on the weekend. However, some layers of health service management, for lots of reasons, and I'm confident this will change, but decided that after-hours appointments weren't okay. So that's impacted the uptake of the program, among other things, and it is going very well, but it has a direct impact on patient access, only providing health consultations within normal business hours. And it had a direct impact on my ability to work in that program as a clinician. And we're going to talk a little bit more about why that is. So I just want to put out there that if you're a health service manager or someone that has influence around decision-making with your services and you don't offer healthcare outside of normal business hours, if you're worried about a staff member who isn't able, is having lots of sick leave and your service doesn't offer any after-hours appointments, you're contributing to the problem. We've got to change it. Right, so this is me. Now, I'm genuinely terrified, to be honest, about talking about some of the details of the way that chronic illness impacts me. I feel, and I've got ingrained beliefs around my employability, potentially, my ability to live in this world as it is. But I was a cyclist and a full-time working physio. Sports injuries is something that happens, and nobody gets upset if you have to take time off to have a shoulder surgery from work, and it's cool to talk about. This particular injury was actually fixed up by a surgeon here in Brisbane, Mark Ross. Thanks. That's not his handiwork, that was the handiwork of the person before him. And I travelled to Brisbane about 5 different times from Newcastle to have appointments that could have been done via telehealth. Anyway, so this is also me, cycling to a health appointment. I live about 20 minutes cycle from the hospital, so I am a metro patient. This is also me arriving at the appointment. All right. I thought I'd take you through a very quick trip around the way that my health condition impacts me, and lots of the symptoms that I have, they're relevant to other people with lots of different chronic illnesses. Thought we'd play a little quick game of Cards Against Humanity and talk about things that never fail to liven up a party. So things like muscle weakness. I look fine, but my quadriceps muscles, for example, have about 50% of the maximum strength you would expect for a 36-year-old woman. I trip over. Reflux never fails to liven up a party, neither does heartburn. Joint aches and pains. I'm not talking about a little bit of an ache, but some serious pain. I drop things. A couple of pins and needles and numbness are a problem. My legs are unreliable. My joints dislocate. I get dizzy, and when I'm talking about dizziness, I have a proper autonomic nervous system dysfunction going on. So without too much warning, I might need to sit down. I'm feeling okay right now, because my heart rate and blood pressure control is not as it should be. My digestive organs aren't controlled in the ways that they ought to be. I can get palpitations. Annabelle Crabb always livens the party, hang on. I have difficulty swallowing, which is a problem in terms of medication compliance, but something for another day. There's an unrelenting exhaustion that's present. I've got fatigue anyway. It's made worse by having inaccessible healthcare. We'll talk about that. Pelvic organ prolapse. I have the feeling of ants crawling on my legs all of the time, which is a problem when you're standing on an ant's nest and you think it's just that normal feeling. My large bowel isn't very well innervated at all anymore, so there's quite a regime of medical management that's required for me to get to work on time. I've had incontinence. I have incontinence at times. I have a rectal prolapse I've had surgery for. My bowels just don't work properly, so I thought I'd live stream that. Lots of fatigue. I've worked out I've had 12 surgeries in the last 11 years and lots of medical treatments, lots of tests, and it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with me. So when I present to most people, present to a health appointment, I think people just assume it's very easy for me to get there. So this is my life. I have very time-consuming infusions, so one of them takes 7 hours per treatment. The other one is every 3 weeks, and it takes sort of 4 to 5 hours, depending on how busy the unit is. And so this was just a tweet that I'd done at the private hospital I have my immunoglobulin infusions at, and I realised I'd been there for 140 visits already, over 9 years, and not once had anyone actually asked me what could make this easier. Like, never. I'd given some feedback, but no one's ever asked me. So I decided to have a rant and said, there's no patient Wi-Fi, so I've got an extraordinarily enormous mobile plan because I have to work from my infusions because I don't have time not to. And I'm very motivated to take care of my health, but my health appointments take too much time. I don't have time to do all of the self-management things that are recommended. And if you have a look on Twitter, look at the hashtag patient experience, you can get now lots of evidence that people want convenient healthcare. So Emma Reinhold also has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and being sick is a full-time job. So I was writing those tweets from this sit-stand workstation that they have installed at the infusion lounge whilst I was doing work, and then ended up having a conversation with this GP practice manager saying, it's not so important for patients to have Wi-Fi. Staff need Wi-Fi, and on we go. So briefly, and it is morning tea time shortly, but I decided to have a look objectively from a diary review over the last 9 years at how much time I spend at health appointments. So I feel like I'm busy, and it actually is because I am. So I've put in work as a 7.5-hour workday. This is daytime hours across a whole year, this lovely pie chart. So I've got half the time for other stuff, and 15% of my time is spent travelling to, 20 minutes travel time each way, so not a lot, travelling to and attending just the appointments to manage the chronic health conditions that I have. It's like 850 hours or something per year. That's about 2.23 hours daily across a 7-day-a-week period. And I'm a metro patient. I live 20 minutes cycle from the hospital, and I still have 57.63 hours on average of travel to my appointments. So metro patients can absolutely benefit every time that I save 20 minutes of travel. That's sick leave I don't have to take. That's my boss not thinking I'm unreliable again because the appointment went late and I'm not there. Sorry, Coralie. So that's something to consider. I decided, hang on, I think it takes more time than that. I added in the extra time it would take if I was adhering to the recommendations for managing my illnesses properly on top of appointments. I'd do my best. And I didn't go overboard here. I'm a physio. I thought about, in order to follow the different guidelines for the conditions that I have, what is the absolute minimum amount of stuff I could do and be following them all? If I did that, that would take an extra 9% of my time. So altogether, it really is almost a full-time job. Also, I could just take it easy and not work so much. But disabled women are the largest group of people who are homeless. I need super. I need to pay for a mortgage just like everyone else. And we can make health services more accessible. The way they're delivered now, they're just not accessible. People with chronic illness and disability are being discriminated against if we don't use telehealth when it's appropriate, if patients want it. So then I thought, oh, whoops, I forgot about the garden variety illnesses that you get and normal appointments at your GP, etc. So add another 28.5 hours a year for those things. It's not just me. I did a quick scoping review, which it was really convenient that someone else had done a scoping review. So my review was very short and found that it was a repeated theme that people with chronic illness do need about an extra 2 hours a day or more if they have multiple conditions to manage their health. So even metro patients are very busy, right? Again, just something else. Great picture. This is me working at home on a day that my autonomic nervous system isn't working well when it's hot. So yes, I could travel in my car or cycle to a health appointment or to work, but some days, if I don't work with, cool packs on, slippers on my feet and on special cushions, then I just need to go to bed instead. So being able to work remotely, have healthcare remotely, brilliant. You can get on with it. You can, again, go through Twitter and find out examples of other people who are lining up for telehealth. So there's guidelines, like you have the power to start doing this in your practice already. It is difficult to get to appointments when you're trying to work full-time, and my dear friend Camille has tagged a new sort of tagline for you. Telehealth can stop the spread of germs and the waste of patient time. So we just need to value patients' time. We need to value people with chronic illness and disability in healthcare, their voices at conferences, and I'm so pleased that you've asked me to speak, and it's a privilege. This is some more of my community, the disability community who wants to take care of their health. So it will be uncomfortable at first, right? I'm speaking to the converter, you all know it's important, but your colleagues are struggling and implementation isn't being focused on. This is my son on his first boating outing. When I've tried to access telehealth appointments, reception staff, admin staff have said, no, this is not for you. It's not difficult for you to get to the hospital. It's not far for you to drive. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't have a telehealth appointment with your immunologist this time, even though you had one last time because he didn't fill out the form. And look, no, we'll get back to you about that. So I've had 4 or 5 telehealth appointments now with my immunologist. The last one didn't happen because no one got back to me. So I saw the immunologist instead in the infusion lounge with no privacy. This is the alternative. I can bring my son to the appointment and he might have a tantrum and I won't be able to listen to this wonderful man who is the only specialist who has provided me regular telehealth appointments. It's really a bit over the top, isn't it? He's the Director of Medicine at the John Hunter Hospital. He's quite happy to see me for my appointments that he doesn't need to touch me in, which is most of them, via telehealth. And honestly, the consultations are much shorter. I can do them from home, I can do them from the Motion Lab in HMRI and wherever, rather than walking over there. It's only a walk from HMRI, and then waiting for hours and not knowing what's going on. And in person, our appointments, and okay, can't stop the noise, normally about 45 minutes, I can talk. The telehealth appointments take about 15, and I feel like I've had all my questions answered. He's managed to organise a treatment, so probably they're more efficient as well. In summary, it's morning tea time. Don't forget your chronically ill and disabled patients. So we are absolutely wanting to do this. If you need to get staff having done a critical mass of appointments, ask people who already use the internet, who would love to have appointments, get really good at it, include us. Don't restrict healthcare from us. I think that's what also I was going to say about that. Yes, don't forget the metro patients. And let's just make telehealth normal, like part of the toolkit of stuff that you have to use when it's appropriate and when people want it.